everyone, welcome back to my backyard. I just love how everything is so green, especially after our trip in Vegas. Today we're shooting next to the area that we leave completely wild in the summer. A little update on the Canada's national bird. Even though the Canadian government hasn't acknowledged the grey jay as our national bird, David bird is just one step closer to having them recognize it. In July this year, the grey jay is being officially renamed as the Canada jay. Go David! I'm all about attracting all sorts of insects and bugs to our backyard. The only problem I have is with wasps building their nests on birdhouses. They love untreated wood, so this is a perfect environment for them. What can we do? Well, we can use a regular bar of soap, unscented, and you can rub it on any of the horizontal surfaces so the wasps will not be able to stick their nest and hang them right here. So this is what I'm gonna do to this birdhouse that I have. I was just reading an article about someone who had an old bulb in an exterior light and then birds built a nest on it. Well, the light got hot enough that it set the nest on fire and then set the whole house on fire. So there are two things that I want to bring to your attention. Well, first of all, please go and check all of your exterior lights to see if there are any birds nesting there. If they are, you have to call one of your local wildlife centers or rehabilitators to move the nest. And then, or at least, please remove all the old lights and replace them with LED lights, which do not produce any heat. This is what I'm doing in one of my lights. Unfortunately, there are still people who deny the whole climate change issue. Here's what David has to say about it.
If you don't believe that our climate is warming, then don't bother listening to another word I have to say. But if you trust me, then know that it is true, and that it's also having a huge impact on our birds. According to one large-scale study, birds are laying their eggs almost 7 days earlier every 10 years. One seabird species, the common murre, is up to 3 weeks earlier every decade. In another study conducted over 63 years on 96 bird species, 27 have changed their arrival dates on the breeding grounds, with most now arriving earlier. And yet another study has showed that birds are also delaying their departure south in the autumn. 6 of 13 songbird species studied are leaving later. None of this is good. Climate warming is causing a mismatch between the birds' life cycles and behavior and the environmental cues they've adapted to over thousands of years. For example, birds arriving earlier in their breeding grounds won't know whether the food resources they depend on will be available when they need it. For example, to fatten themselves up for egg production, or to feed their young in the nest. The reverse is also true. If the birds arrive at their normal time, but the spring food resources have shown up earlier due to climate change, they risk missing those critical spring food resources. Some species are also shifting their range northward. That creates new competitors for those species already existing there. There's a lot more bad news for the birds caused by climate change. I think I've depressed you enough.
For years, scientists have been wondering why sometimes birds live and feed in mixed species flocks. In the Amazon, for example, those flocks can consist of dozens of different species. Well, now the scientists know why. They've conducted a study using the dusky-throated antshrike. These birds live in the mid-canopy level in the jungle, so they're always aware of what's happening above them and below them. And these birds serve as watchdogs for all the other species in the jungle. So when a predator approaches, the antshrikes release a warning call to all the other bird species. This is very similar to our tufted titmouse's danger call that is understood by a lot of other bird species here in North America. Earlier this year, France released a report stating that its bird populations had declined by a third in the past decades. That was a real wake-up call for the agricultural industry. Pesticides have decimated insect populations, leaving nothing for birds to eat. This is pretty much the same situation all over Europe, and Holland is one of the latest countries admitting the decline in their migratory bird populations, especially the house martin. These birds are now traveling from Africa to nest in Holland, and the Dutch are afraid that there are so few insects left that these birds will not have a very successful nesting season. This year, the Dutch have declared it the year of the house martin, and they're encouraging the population to stop using pesticides to grow native flowers and plants, and even create little mud pools to help martins build their nests and generate some extra bugs. Well, we can follow that advice too. A new study that involved the Departments of Agriculture is encouraging fruit farmers to put up American kestrel nesting boxes around their plantations. American kestrels eat insects, small rodents, and fruit-loving birds, so by having them around, they will actually serve as natural deterrents to keep fruit-loving birds away. An economic study was also done, and for every dollar spent on the kestrel box, farmers will actually save from $80 to $380 in saved fruit, as well as generate a couple of extra jobs. So if you happen to grow fruits and berries and you want to keep those fruit-loving birds away, consider the kestrel your new friend. Well, it's time to say goodbye. Please remember that we're still accepting videos of squirrels trying to get to your feeders. We only have one submission and we still have that bird feeder to give away. Have a beautiful week, everyone. I'll catch you in 2 weeks.